Hello and welcome to High Point Music's Gear Reviews. I'm Lewis and today I'm going to be showing you the Vahlbruch Pipeline Reverb pedal. So the Vahlbruch Pipeline Reverb pedal is a pedal that's designed to sound like a spring reverb that you would very commonly find in older style amplifiers. And as you would have seen in the video we've done on using reverb to add layers and textures to your guitar tone, you can add some really interesting effects to change the decay and the sustain of your guitar sounds. So the Pipeline Reverb is a little bit special in that it's fairly simple to use, but it sounds very, very good. Of course, it doesn't have real springs in it like a guitar amp does, but to my ear, it has one of the best spring reverb sounds. It can be set to be very subtle and also set to be very wet or very abrupt sounding as far as reverb goes. And I think that makes it a really great reverb pedal because you can use it in just about any musical style in a very subtle setting, a very low reverb mix. Whereas you can then turn that reverb up and get some really spaced out ambient tones in music that's probably more alternative rock, classic rock, prog rock, jazz, blues, country, pop, just about any kind of modern style. So I'll show you through some different sounds. I'll show you some subtle sounds and some very abrupt sounds, running you through the different controls that the Pipeline has. So my clean tone is my Fender Stratocaster. I'm running into the input of our 2 notes Clean. We're doing things a little bit differently today. And I've got the Vahlbruch Pipeline in the effects loop of the Clean. The reason that I'm doing that is because reverb is typically found after any distortion or gain pedals or stages. It's usually in the end of the amplifier, so having it there gives a more classic amplifier sound setup. We're coming out of the Clean into the input, and then the output of the Pipeline runs back to the return of the effects loop on the 2 notes Clean. So you heard my clean tone. And I've got a dirty sound set up. And this is what the Pipeline sounds like. And the dirty. So to get those sounds, we've got a few controls on the front panel. The reverb control sets the amount of effect, so that's the volume of the actual reverb itself. You can set that from absolute minimum to absolute maximum. At the moment it's at maximum. And then we've got a master volume control here. The master volume control here is for the entire effect. So for example, if I strum a chord and turn that down, it turns the entire effect off, and it also gives me a boost on the other side. This is particularly useful because reverb, when set to very extreme settings, can give the impression that it's losing a little bit of volume. All that sound of that extra space makes it a little bit harder to hear. So you can turn it up here and compensate for the perceived volume loss. Or if this is in the effects loop of your amp, you can also use it as a bit of a master volume control and use it as a 1-point spot to turn your signal down if you need to change pedals or you want to do some quick volume adjustments. That's very handy. The 2 toggle switches that you see there control the tonality and the amount of time that the reverb lasts for. The tone control is a 3-way switch. We've got a natural, bright and dark setting, and the springs length switch controls how long the effect lasts for, the amount of decay that is applied to that effect, and as the longer springs are engaged, you generate more harmonics and a more dense tonality. So to give you an idea, I've got the reverb set at maximum and we're on the natural tone switch with the short springs. Sounds like this. Medium. long. And you can hear the difference between those times there. As far as the tone sounds go, I'm going to go back to the long because it makes it nice and easy. We're on the natural setting, the dark setting, and the bright setting. So to go from the bright to the dark, you can hear there's a pretty big change in the top end. If you're playing with really busy stuff, really distorted stuff, you might want that tonality to be dark so that you don't get a muddiness going. And of course the opposite also applies in that if you want it to sound busy or you want it to sound really complicated, you can have the springs long and the tonality bright, and you're going to get a lot of that bright response coming through back over the top of what you're already playing. So here's a quick example of a little bit of overdrive and the long, bright spring sound. So now I'll show it a little bit more subtle setting. We're going to take the springs down to the very short setting, and we're going to make those repeats darker. This is what it sounds like. And I'll turn that reverb down a little bit. You can hear it getting nice and subtle. And so I'll also show you quickly just the range of the reverb mix. I've got it set on the long because that makes it kind of easier to hear. And I'll set the tonality to natural for the example. So at minimum reverb, it's as if it's not there. About 10 o'clock. A little bit. 12 o'clock. That's at about 2. You can hear the reverb coming through a lot more there. Almost all the way up. Makes it very obvious. And then of course, maximum. So when used on top of distortion, it really gives you the ability to soften the attack of that sound. And in clean tone, it can give you something to kind of play against. So I really like using this pedal because it actually makes me play less and concentrate more on the notes I'm playing, which I think is a really fun thing to do, and it's very applicable in a live scenario where you want to have a great sounding guitar part, but not necessarily something super busy. So when we've got that reverb high on the clean, so you can hear it really adds a lot of depth and space to your guitar playing, which makes it a lot of fun to use. So that's about it. That's the Vahlbruch Pipeline Reverb pedal. It's got some fantastic sounds. It's really easy to use. I find setting the tone and the time of the springs, although it comes down to what you're playing, just a 3-way switch instead of perhaps the alternative pedals might have knobs for those controls. The 3-way switches make it really easy to just get a good setting and get on with playing. I personally use the Vahlbruch Pipeline Reverb. I specifically bought it to use in the effects loop of my 2-notes clean, and it very quickly became a part of my rig when I'm playing with amps as well. It sounds really good. I compared it to a bunch of other models, and I think as far as the spring sound goes, it beats most of them hands down. So I'd very highly recommend picking one up. If you are interested in checking one out, you can follow the links below. I'll also go into a little bit more detail about the settings and how I use them in the blog that you can find on the High Point Music website. Don't forget to check out our social media. If you like what we're doing or you've got any questions, comments or suggestions, you can follow us there, leave a comment, like, share, subscribe those. And of course, thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.